Yeah, I'll be real with you. I just did not feel like getting up. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace, and today, as the title may suggest, I finally read Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, specifically volumes 1 through 7, because that's the only volumes of the manhwa that are out right now. The reason why I decided to do this all of a sudden was actually because of K-pop Demon Hunters. And if any of you know what it's like to have ADHD, you know what it's like to go through various Wikipedia rabbit holes. And what happened with me is that I went to K-pop Demon Hunters Wikipedia page and I found out that the voice actor who played Jinu, I think his name is An Hye-so. If I pronounce his name wrong, I'm so sorry. But the actor who voiced Jinu in K-pop Demon Hunters is going to be in the live action Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint movie that's coming out in like 3 days, I think, as I'm recording this, in Korea. So it's not having a US release date yet. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint was having a live action movie. Some people I saw on the internet were kind of like ragging on the movie poster, and I thought it was just going to be a drama. It's apparently going to be one of 5 planned movies. And I also found out that the actor who's playing the other lead in Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint live action movie was also the same actor who played the one known as Domyoji in the Korean version of Boys Over Flowers. It's a whole thing. I love Boys Over Flowers, but I only watched the Japanese version. He was in the Korean version. So I was like, okay, I have Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint on the brain. Also, it turns out that the web novel is now finally in English print as of yesterday for volume 1. But the English translation of the manhwa in print has been around for at least 7 volumes, and I got all of them from my local library. Please check out your local library. It's a lot of fun. That is why I decided to finally pick up the first 7 volumes of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, and this is gonna be a short and dirty video on why I thought it was a BL this whole time. Okay, I'll be real with you. I can't tell you when I first heard of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I guess I just saw like fan art of Kim Dokja and Yoo Jun Hyuk, and I thought, oh, okay, this is like a sci-fi fantasy BL novel that I never heard of and is new and is in Korea, and that's really cool. I did not know it was not a BL for a long time. I don't remember when I found out it wasn't a BL. Maybe it was when like I actually learned of its story. It was a web novel published in Korea. It was adapted into a manhwa. It's more along the lines of Solo Leveling rather than Bean Counter, I guess. But I've read the first 7 volumes, and I'm here to tell you that, hey, even if it's not a BL, maybe you should give this a try. So I'll explain to you the main premise of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, and you can decide whether or not this is something that suits you. So the main character is Kim Dokja, or Dokja Kim. I'll be calling him Kim Dokja because that's the Korean pronunciation, and that's how I've always known his name to be, the Korean version, so I'll just call him Kim Dokja. So Kim Dokja was just a regular salaryman type of guy, average office worker living in Korea, and his only hobby is to read fantasy web novels, particularly one fantasy web novel in which he was the only reader, called 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, for 3,149 chapters. And one evening, it's finally the epilogue of this huge web novel of which he was the only reader to finish the whole thing over the span of 10 years. Finally, one night as he's coming home from work, it's the epilogue and he's waiting for it to come out, and at 7 p.m., just before the web novel is going behind a paywall, he receives a message from the web novel's author giving him the full text of the novel and saying, you're going to need this. At 7 p.m. on the dot, the world plunges into an apocalypse because it's the web novel come to life. The world is subjected to monsters and chaos. At the behest of these goblin creatures, they are forced into various scenarios live streamed for gods and deities called constellations, and they all watch the humans struggle for survival in these scenarios in order to survive. However, Kim Dokja is in a unique position because he is the reader, the only reader and he knows exactly what's going to happen and how to circumvent or navigate the new world around them. And he obtains the special ability as the Omniscient Reader, and it's the Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. So various characters from the novel pop up around him, including the novel's protagonist, Yoo Jun-hyuk. And the special deal with Yoo Jun-hyuk is that he's gone through the plot of the novel 3 times, and he's become known as the regressor. So basically, Yoon Jun-hyuk has been stuck in a time loop within the world of the web novel, but Kim Dokja is the Omniscient Reader who knows everything about, almost everything about Yoo Jun-hyuk. So when Kim Dokja finally meets Yoo Jun-hyuk, he's like, let's be allies, because Yoo Jun-hyuk, after 3 rounds or however many rounds he's done of this world, he's become the most powerful character. So after they meet, Kim Dokja is like, hey, let's be allies. But Yoo Jun-hyuk is like, who are you? How do you know everything about me? And he believes that Kim Dokja is a prophet, which is kind of not wrong, but Kim Dokja can't allow anyone to know that he's a reader because that would be too easy. So he makes a deal with Yoo Jun-hyuk, and Yoo Jun-hyuk throws him into the mouth of a giant sea serpent to prove himself. And minor spoilers for the very beginning of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, but of course Kim Dokja survives thanks to his advanced knowledge of the world, and he is able to reunite with Yoo Jun-hyuk, and thus this kickstarts like a scenario of the week, challenge of the week type plot progression. I wanted to make this fairly short because, so see, there's this YouTube video called Badly Explaining Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint in 6 minutes. Every time I watch or rewatch that video, I know less and less. And then I read these 7 volumes and I finally do understand what some of that video is talking about, but only like 1 of those 6 minutes I understand. And it took me 7 volumes. Because I find this really interesting. So in many fantasy TV shows in particular, perhaps something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Scooby-Doo, there is a monster of the week, and that's where the term monster of the week comes from. In this case, however, it's sort of like a scenario of the week, and we've coming up to the 4th scenario in 7 volumes. So the first scenario is survive, second scenario is get to this location, third scenario is capture this many areas of importance. Slowly but surely you can see that the scenarios get more and more difficult with each time. However, Kim Dokja, perhaps it's a little bit of an OP type of ability to have the Omniscient Reader within the world of the novel, but I find it fascinating because I feel like this is a natural progression of fantasy novels and the relationship that we have with fantasy novels in particular. I feel like with a lot of readers, especially with myself, especially as I was younger or even now, like the way that we read fantasy novels and the way we interact with fantasy novels and how they build upon each other. You know, like how Lord of the Rings was like not you can argue not the OG, but you can argue like the OG original of modern fantasy, of which modern fantasy originates itself from. So then we have the original, and then the response to the original, and then the response to the response of the original, and so on and so forth. We've come to the point in our relationship with fantasy tropes, any kind of tropes really, in which, oh, I can predict this, I can understand what it means, because Kim Dokja has kind of said to his allies by saying, oh, I read a lot of fantasy novels, because of course they're like smart enough to catch like, hey, Kim Dokja, you know a lot, like what is up with this? And he can say, well, I read a lot of fantasy novels. Not this one in particular, but he has. This one in particular, he has. But you can argue if, let's say, someone does read a lot of fantasy novels, they could probably survive in this sort of scenario. So I think right now what we're seeing, and I think we're seeing with like a lot of Korean manhwas in particular, kind of Korean manhwas, kind of like a lot of sort of like East Asian in particular, because I haven't quite seen this with Western media in particular. East Asian media in particular, I've seen a lot of this like transmigration stories. So real briefly, I want to touch upon this in my hopefully upcoming forthcoming second part to my Danmei guide video. But touching upon it here briefly as well is transmigration, as well as isekai stories. So isekai stories, some of you may or may not know, isekai stories is particularly an anime trope, Japanese anime trope, in which a character goes to another world. Particularly in Western fantasy, this would be called a portal fantasy, like Narnia or Owl House, in which the character goes to another world. Obviously, isekai means another world. Something like Sword Art Online, In My Smartphone with Another World. I don't even know. There's like so many isekai stories. Like Saga of Tanya the Evil is technically an isekai story, even though it barely clears the criteria for an isekai story. So by way of either finding a gateway, dying in a previous life in our modern world, the main character comes into a new world. That's the other world, the isekai. In Chinese novels, and I guess particularly with Korean manhwas and stories as well, these are more so known as transmigration novels. So the migration being migrating, and transgender, transporting, transmigrating into another world. Particularly when it comes to transmigration, you're more likely to see it being like other novels. So for example, like the most popular, I would argue, transmigration Chinese novel is Scum Villain's Self-Saving System, written by the same author who wrote Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. In that one, the main character dies. I think he died after eating a dumpling. I forgot. There were two characters, and one of them died after eating a dumpling, and the other one died after tripping over his like power strip and getting electrocuted. Some dumb shit like that. I'm a little bit drunk right now, I'm so sorry, because I meant to be filming this like ages ago, but then like all sorts of shit happened, so I'm filming it now. But basically, like, the main character died, he was reading a web novel he hated, then he gets transported into the world of the novel. So you're more likely to see transported into the world of a novel, more so with like Chinese and I guess Korean manhwas, rather than Japanese manhwas, which I feel like more so want to transport the characters into the world of video games. That's what happened with Sword Art Online. But basically, isekai, transmigration, portal fantasy, they all kind of fall into the same category. Particularly with Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, I feel like we are seeing a new type of story rise in terms of like character relationships in particular. So because I was reading this, I found myself comparing it a lot to Solo Leveling, which is also a hugely popular Korean manhwa right now. It's become an anime, it has 2 seasons out, and then I was like, okay, I feel like this is kind of similar to how everyone's been talking about Solo Leveling. So I did watch a few episodes of that, and by a few I meant just 3 episodes because I kind of got bored, I'll be honest with you. Because I think the main difference is that with Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, there is the relationships that Kim Dokja builds, not only with Yoo Jun-hyuk, but also with the other allies he makes along the way, both characters from the novel that he's read and non-characters. And I feel like that what Kim Dokja and what the story is trying to explore is the relationship between readers and characters. Because I feel like with Solo Leveling I was really into thanks to the action, but even so, with the first 3 episodes, I felt like it was really trying to pad out the action a lot by like talking out loud, making some characters feel dumber. Maybe it's just because it was the first 3 episodes, and that was like the build-up episodes before the main character Sung Jin-woo, I think his name was, before the main character like obtains his abilities that allows him to level up. Minor spoilers for Solo Leveling, but that is in the title. Maybe I'll get back into Solo Leveling. I'll be real with you. The other reason I couldn't get into Solo Leveling a lot is because my Wi-Fi router is kind of acting up, and so it like pauses a lot when I'm trying to watch Crunchyroll on my TV. So that's probably just a me thing, but I did enjoy the action. But the thing is, I enjoy the action from Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint as well, even so far for now as it is in manhwa form, because the scenario of the week introduces new challenges literally every time. One challenge is complete, there's another challenge ahead. You could argue that like Kim Dokja's like omniscient reader status gives him a lot of Deus Ex Machina type abilities. Like he's basically playing New Game Plus while everyone else is playing New Game. The story does address that by challenging him with other readers. Very minor spoiler, but I won't get into that from there. But even still, like even if he is playing in New Game Plus, it's not as if the events of the novel are exactly happening as they were in the novel, because he is the new variable factor, as well as the other non-characters, as well as the different actions that he takes that go against the grain of what Yu Jun Hyuk knows, as well as other characters know. So I don't know. I actually am enjoying Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint right now. I am considering like how to read the web novel now that it is in print in English, and I just want to see if it's more or less BL than the manhwa. I am so embarrassed that I thought this was a BL for the longest time. I don't remember. I don't know, man. It's just that like I'm the kind of reader who loves reading about character relationships more so than just individual characters like winging it on their own, which is probably why I like Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint more than Solo Leveling, because literally solo is in the title. That main character is on his own leveling up. Maybe the relationships will be developed later. If any of you are Solo Leveling readers or watchers, please let me know. But for now, I'm really liking Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, because even though Kim Dokja has the tendency to go off on his own, he values the relationships that he's built over time in this new world. So I'm really curious about what is going on, not just with the main characters, but also with the minor supporting cast around them, which I feel like is strong. Even though there are a lot of supporting characters, they're very well developed insofar as their potential, insofar as the circumstances in which they find themselves in don't make it unbelievable for me that they would like do the things that they would do or find themselves like connected to Kim Dokja in this way. So I feel like this is a good time to talk about Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. I know that the web novel has actually been done for a while. I think they ended at around 546 chapters, I believe. So the novel is done, and there has been an anime announcement. The print novel in English is out. The live action movie is out in Korea. I hope maybe they'll have an American theatrical run. We'll see. But right now, this is just how I feel about Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. And even though, admittedly, I don't like it enough to buy it, I will be following the series as it comes out in my library. So this is my semi-tipsy rant about Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. And if this doesn't get you interested, then I don't know what will. I don't know, maybe like Giguk's video, maybe, because he's better edited than mine. And I'm just rambling in my living room because I did not want to get up and get out of my nice, comfy, air-conditioned room right now. But if this interests you, then please go pick up a copy of the English manhwa. There are 7 volumes out right now, with the 8th volume coming out sometime at the end of September. So that's still going, and also the manhwa is still ongoing. I believe, I looked it up, there's somehow like 30 or 40% of the way completed of the original story, so that will be going on for some time. Maybe I'll pick up the web novel in the future, maybe I'll talk about it in the future. But if this interests you, leave a comment down below and like just wreck me all your BL stuff. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm just huffing some copium right now. Kiss your fan and friends goodnight, and I'll see you in the next one. Upcoming next will be my Dame Readers video, and kiss your fan and friends goodnight. Did I already say that? I don't care. Bye. This is a short one. Thank you so much. Bye.